Hello, and welcome to Owning It, the podcast that celebrates the inspiring choices made by women who refuse to simply follow the crowd and chose the road less traveled. I'm your host, Sandhya Thukaram, and in each episode, we'll have real conversations with these incredible women who choose to carve their own path because following just isn't an option. They may not be making headlines, but every one of them is a role model. So join me and let's explore the power of choice and the inspiration it brings right here on Owning It. The glass ceiling is real. It is perhaps even more real in the VC world. My guest today, Sunitha Viswanathan, not only broke the glass ceiling and made partner, but ensures she owns all aspects of her life, overcoming her fear of water and learning how to swim, traveling and discovering the world, and managing to get married, taking on a new job, and moving to a new city, all in the midst of the pandemic. Join me in conversation with Sunitha and discover how she owns it. Sunitha, I couldn't think of a different way to start our chat than say Sunitha. It's so us. And I'm so excited. I know we haven't really been chatting as often lately, but it's nice to get some 45 minutes of focus time with you. Mostly today's conversation, I want to focus on really women in VC. We talk about the glass ceiling, it exists everywhere, but within the VC world, it's particularly prominent. And it's not just about India, it's a global phenomenon. I remember about 8, 10 years ago, I was having dinner with the managing director of a prominent VC fund. We shall not take names, and we were having a really good conversation. And I said, it really is puzzling. You'd imagine that the VC world was about really smart, switched on people, and it would make better choices. Why are there so few women? And he very earnestly told me, oh, we just promoted this person from uh, maybe associate to VP, or from VP to principal. And he said it very honestly, and I looked at him and I said, no, but I'm talking about at partner level. It's just so few. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about. I'm so proud you broke the glass ceiling and you're partner at a VC fund. Sunitha, what has it meant for you? Let's talk about you in the moment, being partner of a fund. What your experiences were, what your journey is right now. I know it's what, a year, a little over a year, a little over a year. Have there been challenges? We'll wear the gender lens. I don't normally just like to focus it, but you and I are women, and this podcast is about chatting with women. So, have there been implicit biases or explicit biases that you experience?
Sure. Thanks for the very kind introduction, Sandhya. And it's lovely to be doing this conversation today. I'll just probably state a few things that have been my observation. Actually, I should start off with the caveat that I've been fortunate compared to a lot more women in terms of not facing as many biases. So for that, I'm very fortunate. However, having said that, there is a difference between whether when you're a woman partner and you're a male partner, or if you're in the VC space by in itself. So just starting off, most of the founders that you meet are young male founders, and typically there's a camaraderie that gets built up. Say if there was a male colleague and a male partner, or even a junior male colleague for that matter, just the way they're addressing each other, Sergi, etc. Right? That's not going to happen with a woman colleague or a woman partner, and I'm fine with that. That's an equation that I don't aspire to get to at the get go. However, what I do try to do is I build it up over time. It's a question of showing what you can add value to the table, having a lot more one-on-one conversations separately if that's a founder that you choose to back and a founder that wishes to work with you. And I see that with time it takes longer. The effort is far more, but one can get to a stage where the founder subsequently tells you that it was great working with you. The equation that we had has changed from when we started, and yeah, it's a lot more meaningful. I think it just takes a lot more work. It takes time, so just being cognizant of that helps. I was just going to say the other point that I wanted to bring up, and this is not necessarily true just of the VC industry, but I think just senior women leaders across industries is if you're in a room filled with mostly male colleagues and male customers, etc., there is a very high probability that if you're the only woman in the room, for some reason you get associated as probably the junior most resource. Now, why? Okay, sure. Let's ask everyone around. But that does happen. Interestingly, we have a women investor group, and almost every single person on the group had this incident occurring to them every single time. So it's not an isolation. So it obviously takes time for people to realize that, okay, the woman on the other side of the table potentially can and is probably senior to you. But yeah, those are biases.
I've gone to meetings with a male intern and then been considered the intern because I was female. It's
Sometimes you
ridiculous.
wonder, is it the way you look? Maybe you should look a little bit older, but I guess it doesn't, right?
It
Like it's
doesn't
just
matter.
cultural
They'll think
biases.
you're an older intern. That's the only difference. It's yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's almost laughable if it wasn't sad. I feel like you and I are privileged enough that we can laugh about it and take it in our stride, though we shouldn't laugh too much about it. But then maybe so many people who just face this and have no way out, right?
Absolutely. And it's a lot of effort, right? Like, what is your main job? You want to actually excel at whatever is your KRAs, right? Like, and you're doing all of that. And top of that, let's say you need to allocate another 20 to 30% of your time just to be cognizant one of these biases so that you can try to shed them away from others' perceptions. Then entering a meeting, like if you readjust yourself, okay, this just happened. You thought I'll take the minutes of the meeting and not someone else who's junior, and then refocus, recalibrate, and then get to what you need to be delivering during that meeting. It is a lot of mental bandwidth, and let's be very clear that this is what a woman day in and day out has to do compared to say a male counterpart.
Yeah, it feels almost archaic to be talking about it even today. But I want to move on. I want to stick to Sunita's unique story. Just moving away from Sunita, the woman, just Sunita. I mean, you are a woman, so that will be there. But what have been your challenges, or what have you navigated, or what were the choices you made to get here, just in your journey?
Sure, sure. I think I've generally taken some of the non-conventional choices. So when I finished my undergrad, I decided to work at a semiconductor startup, and this was way back in 2007. Nobody knew what a startup is, and on top of that, a semiconductor startup in India. But it just sounded very cool. It sounded like a bunch of really fun folks, and that was actually my first foray into the startup ecosystem. It was a short startup, short stint, sorry, just about a year. But that kind of cemented my belief that somehow I'm going to come back into the startup ecosystem. And I think that really played a very big influence in my overall journey subsequently. Uh, Things that I've kind of learned over time is just to be extremely assertive in a non aggressive way, and it didn't come naturally to me. I think it's something that I constantly put in efforts even today. I think it comes from the original idea that I'm here to learn, I'm here to absorb. So I'm listening more to others, not necessarily sharing what I think. And this works fine, say, in the first 5 years of your career when that's what you should be doing. But subsequently, you need to shed away that inhibition and actually start sharing your thoughts. And sometimes it's essential to also stick to your guns and just kind of push back in a non-aggressive fashion, because you do have a valid point. It makes sense, and not really take it down saying that okay, someone else thinks it's a different perspective. But yeah, so that's something I've learned to be assertive. And in fact, I think one of a few years back it was my yearly resolution that I shall be assertive for this year. So yeah, I've had to work on that.
That word aggressive always makes me uncomfortable because it's been so easily used for me. I've never been shy about being assertive. I was born an assertive person, and it's never about being aggressive. I had a point of view and I wanted to share it, but I think it's a narrative that has been created to stop women from speaking. there's this word aggressive, because I mean, men are making a point every time. And it's not about male bashing. I'm just saying it's the way it is. And
Right.
when people use the word aggressive, I push back. Because I said, no, it's a point of view as much as you are. Sunita, I want to go back to when, and I keep saying this on this podcast. I go back to the age 10 for some reason. Um, what was Sunita like at age 10? And then my following question is, what were your aspirations then? And do you see that Sunita today, or is it a very, very different person?
So I actually remember the year 10 quite clearly because that's when we moved cities. We moved from Mumbai to Bangalore. It was completely new. I moved schools. I had to start off all over again, build new friendships, friends who continued even now today. So that year was very pivotal and etched in my mind. What was very uh, constant was I wanted to excel in everything I did. And I think that came from my parents, which was basically give it your best, whatever it is, right? Like, even if it's just an art assignment, just give it your best. But always ensure, aim for excellence. That was the phrase that we kind of got ingrained with. My dad constantly would use it. So even then, at 10 years, obviously, I had no idea that I wanted to become an investor or what even startups was. But what I was very clear was I wanted to do well in life. I wanted to ensure that no matter what craft I chose, I wanted to do it really, really well. I wanted to ensure that my parents would feel proud of me. And I think that was something that constantly drove me because we two daughters in our house, and I always felt that not my parents were absolutely great. Like, that's something that I hold very dear to me today as well. But I wanted to ensure that no one else around us ever said that, oh, if only you had a son. So to me, that was just an extra motivation to ensure that I do really well and they feel proud. So that was something that was very clear in my head, whatever shape and form it took.
I think you're an excellent human being, Sunita.
Very
But
kind.
Sunita, I want to talk about looking back though. Are there things you might have done differently? The Sunita today, when you look back at some things, or you think, no, it was just what I did when I needed to do it?
There could have been smaller instances I may have dealt with differently. But if I look at it from a perspective of the bigger milestones or the bigger decisions, I don't think so. I think every birthday, and I just try to think in my mind, how do I feel about myself, and is this the best I feel in terms of what I'm doing? And I think that answer has just gotten yes. I like myself today than probably I was when in my early 30s or in my 20s. So honestly, each has been a journey to what I've gotten here. So I don't have any regrets that, oh, I wish I could have done this differently, or I wish I'd have gone for a master's degree abroad, etc., etc. It honestly, I just feel like it's led me to where I am today, and I'm quite happy with that.
I can't have a chat with you. And like I said, these are not interviews, these are conversations with women I respect. So I can't have a chat with you without talking about how amazed I was about how you went after learning how to swim. I remember we went on a kind of office offsite, and we went rafting, and how petrified you were. And to me, seeing you scared was so opposite of the Sunita I know on land, who's always in control and willing to take most things on. And to see you in water, and I could see absolute fear. And I know a couple of years later, you went from that fear to going and taking up classes and conquering your fear. Tell me about that, a little bit about uh, what made you say, I'm going to conquer it, and how you went about it.
I think unlike most other kids, as growing up, I didn't end up learning swimming, and not because my mom didn't try. She tried hard. She tried everything, but I just didn't take to it. I just wasn't a water person even then. I think then a few years back, I think nearly 7 years back, we went on a holiday to Australia, and some of the most pristine beaches. Was fortunate to have been at a bunch of beaches. one thing that stood out for me was that kids as young as, say, 2 or 3 year old with their parents were actually getting into the ocean and swimming and learning to swim. And that's when it just hit me that I have lost a very big part of fun in life by not being able to swim, because I would never go into the ocean unless the water came up till only my ankle, and that's about it. I'd have to run back. And I just felt that bizarre, that why have I not managed to get over this fear? And the only way to do is systematically go enroll for classes and learn how to swim. And so I decided to start that off. I think at that point I was just about going to turn 30. So I told myself, okay, let's try to get this done before I turn 30. And I took classes. I was a slow learner. I have no shame in admitting that. I took the same classes twice over and thrice over to get to a stage where I could swim, feel comfortable. I today can swim decently. I'm nowhere going to be able to compete in any kind of race, but I don't intend on. But I do feel comfortable enough that I can go for snorkeling. I can actually swim in the ocean today decently well. So it was just something that I wanted to get over. I was like, I can't live my entire life without getting into the ocean or having that fear that I'm going to drown. It's not a pleasant feeling. So yeah, I just went and decided to get this done.
I love that story. Thanks for sharing it here. But I want to stay with travel. I know how important it is to you. Uh, you're the person I remember who came back from a trip to Istanbul and made vegetarian food sound glamorous for the first time in my life. Because I was like,
I
yeah,
think I've
okay.
tried to do that with all of my travels with everybody. Please go and eat the vegetarian food, and these are the restaurants you should be trying.
Coming back to travel, and I know how much that means to you, and it means a lot to me too. And I think that one of the reasons why we connected so early is our love for travel. But I want to tell me a little bit about your latest trip. But I want to come back to the point of how you feel travel has helped you grow, or has it helped you grow?
Sure, sure. And maybe I'll start with your first question. My husband and I visited Tanzania late last year. That trip is the most memorable ones for me for multiple reasons. It was a trip that we had planned a year ago, right after our wedding. It didn't happen due to COVID, so it was a trip that got delayed by nearly 12 months. So when we actually got there, there was a sense of just relief that we finally managed to get there. And being able to spend so many days in Serengeti was a completely different experience, just a surreal experience to be in the savannah, to be able to see the wildlife so up and close. And the first moment when we were in our car with our guide, to spot two white little things walking on the street, and to just go a little closer and see that this was a lion and a lioness feeding,
Wow.
that was just unbelievable. The majestic walk, the lion and the lioness crossing the road, sitting down, and then they had a bunch of their cubs around. Fantastic. So to me, that just stays in my mind. It's a photographic memory for me right now. And thanks for asking that question. I'm just reliving that entire moment all over again. So that was one of my favorite pieces from our entire trip.
And to connecting that to how do you feel you've grown, and do you feel you've
Yeah.
grown through traveling?
No, absolutely. I think there's no doubt in that. And every city and every country that I've visited, what I try to do always, much to the annoyance of people who are traveling with me, whether it's my friends, my husband now, or my parents, is that I love taking the public transport and I love walking around. That's the way I feel like you get to see the city, not going by cabs. So I typically end up doing the metro, just walking in the evening, and it helps me see people, see the locals. What are they doing? How are they going about their daily life? Are they sitting in the cafe? Are they having a conversation with friends? What's it like? I may not even understand the language, but I just love having a purview or a silent view into what's going on. And it just helps me feel a part of a new culture. And so that's, I always recommend that please do walk. And for people who are going to countries, I always allocate time to just walk around. And incidentally, since you brought up the Istanbul
Trip.
incident, one thing that stands in my mind from that travel, besides the lovely food, was the fact that it was around late evening. My parents, my sister, and I were going to go to I think we were going to go to a tourist spot, and for some reason the taxi just dropped us in the wrong location, and we didn't have GPS, we didn't have internet at that point of time. Our phones didn't have mobile internet, etc. We were looking quite confused and quite lost. In fact, it was later in the evening, so my mom was getting a bit worried, like, where have you just brought me? And very kindly, another taxi driver just came up, asked where you want to go, and he ensured he took us to the right spot. This was kindness out of nowhere. He didn't have to do it, but he did. And that was just unbelievably kind to me, for us at that point of moment, because we were looking extremely clueless. And I think that panic would have set in if he hadn't come in at that point. So travel just brings out some of the best of people that you're able to see, otherwise that you just ignore. And it keeps reminding me about how, while there's a lot of differences in cultures, etc., but at deep down, we all want to try to be as kind as we can. So I just love seeing things like this all over again every time I travel.
That's a lovely way to put what you experience through travel, because I've always said at the end of the day, people are people.
Yeah.
And when you travel, that just becomes simpler. It's so easy to sit in our rooms and think about differences, but when you're actually out there, we're all the same. Um,
Without a doubt. Yeah.
yeah. Sunita, I know the last year or the year before, the last couple of years, many things happen at the same time. You got married, you made partner, and you changed cities. Now, even one of those is a life changing experience, and you had three life changing experiences. Um, Tell me a little bit about really navigating through all of that together.
Yeah, and I keep telling this to folks around me that nothing happens in years and a life happens in weeks. And I feel that that's kind of what happened in a couple of years ago. And to add to it, there was obviously the bigger complexity of doing it all during COVID. So that just meant a lot of meticulous planning, a lot of Excel lists and sheets to plan a wedding, and then moving cities, doing a bunch of things remotely. And I think a lot of credit goes to my husband as well, to orchestrate the move for us and ensuring that it was as comfortable and easy. Just given that there was COVID, we wanted to set up a house, etc. And I think what has worked for us, at least, and I can just tell in our context, is to be very clear in terms of what is the allocation of household chores, etc. We are privileged enough to have external help to help most of it. But for the rest of it, we just try to be very clear who's doing what, and ensuring that we're at least doing what we kind of own up. And for me, work is far more important than for a lot of other people potentially. So it's a very integral part of my life. And I think just the fact that my husband understands that helps, because I will end up taking calls during a lot of times when we're out, etc. But I think just that support and makes it far more easier for sure.
Yeah, amazing. You really owned it, Sunita. I want to end our chat with Sunita and 5 years from now. Where do you think you'll be 5 years from now? I know it's a slightly cliched question, and I wonder sometimes why I ask it. But I always, maybe in 5 years, we'll look back and say, hey, you remember we had this chat, and we'll see if it turned out that way. So it's more for that.
Sure. And maybe a good time for me to just put it out there and then calibrate myself subsequently. I think that what I mentioned earlier, aim for excellence, continues to be a big driver for me. To be able to hone my craft even further in terms of investing, being able to get better at it day after day. To be part of very meaningful and successful company journeys would be something that I'd look forward to in the next 5 years. To be part of that growth story of founders and entrepreneurs would be something that I'm looking forward to. And just being healthy and happy, honestly. At the end of the day, we need to have a good health to be able to do what we want to do. And at the end of the day, we want to be happy with the people that we are with. So that's just something I'd want to be able to do.
Thanks, Sunita. As I listened to you, and it's one of the few times that I don't talk. That's why maybe I have a podcast where I actually allow other people to talk and take a break. But I believe in why I'm doing this more, because I feel shine the spotlight on more women owning it, making choices, and every bit of what you said was you owning it. So keep owning it, and more power to you, Sanita. Until we chat again offline.
Thanks so much, Sandhya. Been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on Owning It. With every conversation with women who are taking control of their narrative, I'm constantly inspired. Don't forget to tune into the next conversation with yet another woman choosing her own path and owning it.